Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope we're going to hear some interesting things tonight, although I am slightly concerned that our key person that's supposed to be here isn't here yet. If you have got a question to ask us, it is an open forum for discussion. Please use the reactions button if you can, the raise hand function. It makes it easier for me. But otherwise, if you're not sure on that, then you can just physically raise your hand, but I may actually take longer to find you. Mutual respect, please. It is an open forum. Let's none of us actually dominate what's being said. We've all got different views, we've all got different ideas, we're all doing different things. It's about working together. Some people are having to leave early, so we won't take that as an offence. Okay, so this is one of our informal get-togethers, and we have them every 6 to 8 weeks for peace in Great Britain and Ireland, and it's open to anybody in the Rotary family, not just from Great Britain and Ireland. We do sometimes have people dropping in from all other places around the world as well. This evening we are going to talk about Ukraine. When I put this out originally, Ukraine sadly had the issues had just kicked off. It was a week after Russia had started the invasion. So I didn't have a clue what we would be talking about tonight. And actually, probably what we're talking about tonight may change if it is next week, because the Ukraine Crisis Task Force, we've got a meeting next week with our opposite number in Ukraine. So one of the key things that we're going to be asking them is what more and what else do they want from us? You know, are we doing what they want us to be doing? Are there different things that we could be doing or doing things better? So hopefully we'll have some updates from that. I do want to just say a couple of quick things around peace. For me, those of you here, some of you know where I'm coming from generally, but for me, peace is relevant to every one of us in Rotary. Actually, it's relevant to every one of us on planet Earth, and that we are all peace builders. And it's about providing that optimum environment for human potential to flourish. And Rotary has a partner, and has had for several years now, the Institute of Economics and Peace, and their 8 positive pillars of peace. And that's all about the optimum environment for human potential to flourish. It ties in absolutely with our 7 areas of focus, of which peace building and conflict prevention is, of course, one of them. It links in absolutely with every single one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which apply to the whole of the globe. So everything that you're doing in your Rotary service, whatever it is linked to peace building in one way or another. And I actually see peace as, although it's its own area of focus, it's actually the heart of everything that we do. And we've all seen how peace is so critical to our Rotary service. And if you don't have peace, it makes our Rotary service incredibly, incredibly difficult. If you are going to Houston, just a plug, please, that on the Friday and Saturday, the 3rd and 4th of June, immediately before conference starts, there is actually the Rotary Presidential Peace Conference, which this year is actually looking at the 8 positive pillars of peace and how they tie in absolutely with the areas of focus. And that's going to be very much looking at what we can be doing and are doing in our clubs. And in fact, on the 18th of June, which is a Saturday, from 10 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon, we've got a Great Britain and Ireland virtual seminar. We are all peace builders. It is open to absolutely anybody, Rotarian or not, wherever they are. Thrilled that we have got Steve Killerley, who is the founder of the Institute of Economics and Peace. He's an amazing man. He's a very successful businessman, got a huge heart, done an awful lot as a philanthropist, and really has been, over the last 13, 14 years, looking at providing the world with what is actually the environment that's needed to build peace. So they're the institute that produce things like the Global Peace Index, the Global Terrorism Index, and all things like that. That seminar will be very much about every one of us being able to be a peace builder. And Ukraine is what we're here to talk about tonight. Now, that's just one of the places in the world right now where there is severe conflict and a humanitarian crisis. And we mustn't forget all of our other Rotary service work. And we're not suggesting as a task force that this replaces everything else. It's alongside it, but it is certainly in my lifetime, it is the most critical thing that we need to be responding to, because it could affect the world. You know, who knows what's going to happen with a finger and a button or whatever else. The Ukraine Crisis Task Force for Great Britain and Ireland is chaired by Alan Smith from District 1110. And our remit is, as it reads here, it's about trying to provide a coordinated approach to the crisis, especially to displaced people, both within the Ukraine and elsewhere, and to be a communication mechanism with yourselves, and two-way really helps us. As the members of that task force, it's Alan obviously as chair, these are in alphabetical order. Anthony Beaver has recently joined us, he's public image coordinator, which is really important. James Onions looks after the ICCs, the inter-country committees aspect. I'm on the team because I'm the Great Britain and Ireland Peace Building and Conflict Prevention lead. I'm also Empowering Girls Ambassador, and through both of those, I have a lot of network connections as well. Dr. John Phillip, who is supposed to be here with us this evening, is the chair of the International Fellowship of Healthcare Professionals, and is working so hard day in, day out. Mike Parry is there to help us with the foundation, our Rotary Foundation, and how that's helping and how we can help it to help more. Peter King is looking after the liaison about people coming into Great Britain and Ireland, but really his role is now really much more linking with Cheryl and Brenda and Peter Dowse, and I'll tell you about that in a second. Roger Stent is with us this evening, and Selwyn Foreman, they're both current DGs and they're on the team. And Tata is from Ukraine, in the UK now, but very much knows what's going on the ground. So alongside this crisis task force, there is the resilience team, and Cheryl is the co-humanitarian team lead, is responsible for that team, which is led by Brenda Parsons and Peter Dowse. And that's very much about the help for our guests when they arrive in Britain and Ireland and everything that's around that. If I could just leave you with Roger for 2 minutes while I go off and try and phone John Phillip, that would be wonderful, please. Roger, can I leave you to lead the way if I make you a co-host?
Yeah, no problem at all, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Roger Stent, DG for 1145 Rotary South, and I've been a member of the task force since it was conceived. I actually have a fairly good knowledge of Ukraine, having worked out there for the last 4 years on and off. And I'm in contact with various people over there each week through my work. With the planning that's going on in our IPI, Rotary Great Britain and Ireland level, just so that you understand some of the terminology, we have a task force that was set up to look at what was needed to be done either in Ukraine or to support the refugees as they came across the borders into the neighbouring countries. And work within Ukraine was called Phase 1, although it didn't last long because it became too dangerous to get stuff there. Phase 2 was support to the 5 countries surrounding Ukraine, where there's been a lot of activity going on. Phase 3 is where the refugees are starting to arrive. And that's where the resilience team with Cheryl, etc., and Brenda come in, giving advice through our district and club resilience officers on liaison with the local authorities on what we can do as clubs to get involved to support the refugees as they settle down into our country. Hopefully there may be a Phase 4, which is reconstruction back in Ukraine once it's all over. Let's just hope that that can happen. It's a bit nebulous at the moment, but it's always a dream. So if you hear us talk about Phase 2 or Phase 3, That's where it comes from. And we're entering phase 3 now. In my own district, we have, we're starting to get refugees come through the government scheme. We've got them certainly arriving in Redhill. I understand there are about 90 coming into my own area called Tandridge, which is Caterham and Oxted, right on the border between Surrey and Kent. They've had their visas processed, but they haven't arrived yet. There's a story of the world, isn't it, for the last few weeks? And we know of at least one major hotel that's been emptied by the government and has been made available for Ukrainian refugees when they arrive. And there are others. So really it's a question now. We've got three things. One, we've got three questions around Ukraine. One, what support can we give within Ukraine? And that we've kept away from a lot of the time because they've been getting the wrong things and we couldn't get the money to them. We hope that will be resolved at our meeting with them next week. Two, what further support can we give to the refugees and the Rotarians looking after them in the neighbouring countries, coming from Poland, Hungary, Czechia and Slovakia, Romania and Moldova? And thirdly, what should we be doing to help the refugees as they enter our country? Now, those are the three questions facing us. I don't have a magic wand, and it will be good to get some ideas about what is practicably possible for us to do. Cheryl, I don't know if you want to say anything else from the resilience point of view.
Yes, please, Roger. I think that sort of links on beautifully. So as you've said, we class ourselves the resilience end of it. That's Brenda Parsons, who is on tonight, and Peter Dowse and myself. And we work with the resilience officers in every district. We're an existing network, and that's the good thing, really. We were very active during the pandemic, so our communication networks and everything that we do, we're ready. I mean, sadly, we couldn't foresee a crisis like this, but our preparation for it has helped us enormously. The important thing for us is to respond as quickly as we can. And I think I need to explain that as Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, we're part of something called the VCSEP. That's the Voluntary and Community Sector Emergencies Partnership. So Rotary is actually an extremely important partner in that, which means that we do work with local government, with national government at strategic level, as well as operational level. So we were in at the beginning. So we're actually in our third year of that partnership in VCSEP. And we've noticed a big difference in terms of information. As Roger's just said, the number of refugees is varying in different parts of the country, but through our partnerships, we can get a bit of a heads up if we know that people are on their way to your particular areas. Peter and Brenda have done a magnificent job getting feedback from the resilience officers, which we in turn have put into the bulletin. We put it in the task force bulletin so you can see where we belong in the jigsaw of support. But we also send reports back to your resilience officers. So I've got a kind of bit of a plea this evening to say we're really hoping now that within your districts you have like your own little emergency response team, your international officers, your community and vocational officers, and particularly your resilience officer, because through your team, you're able to help your individual clubs. And we've had, haven't we, Roger, some fantastic newsletters that district governors have shared with us, showing what all the different clubs are doing. For me, I know Janine started this evening by saying we're working together and peace affects all of us. It absolutely does. And what even the smallest of clubs are doing in their areas is significant. It's that friendly reaching out to somebody, because the trauma of these refugees is just immeasurable. And just somebody friendly there, welcoming there, can be a key part in their recovery. The other thing, if you'd let me mention it, Roger, and then I promise I'll shut up, is about the mental health. It follows on from what I've just said about trauma and mental health. We've been working with Bipolar UK, a small charity within the UK, but one that has helped us tremendously to compile a whole list of support of mental health services. We've translated that help into Ukraine as well as English. That went out in Bulletin 8, a link to the PDF. We would love you to share that leaflet, because the Ukrainian refugees themselves can read it and know where they can get help. So can the hosts in the homes and support organisations, be it your clubs or your district. And we're hoping that the Home Office will actually be distributing this leaflet, which is clearly there saying Bipolar UK, together with Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, have brought this support together. We know it's not just about Ukraine, and we're now trying to translate it into Afghan as well, and for any refugees anywhere. So I hope that's useful, Roger, just to kind of show how we link across to the work already being done. But we work as a big team, and it's been very, very good doing that, knowing what each of us are doing.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to hand back to Janine now. And I see that John's joined us. It's nice to see you again, John.
Right.
Since we were together this morning.
Yeah. Sorry, Janine, we carried on very much in the Rotary theme. Roger asked me to carry on and say a little bit about the resilience of BCSEP and everything.
It might well
I mentioned the mental health.
It might be useful now, if we could, to ask the people who aren't on the team to ask us some questions, and then that way we can hand over to John to answer them.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to just mention a couple of things that have already come up in chat. One, Cheryl, is about getting some more information about what the VCSEP is and how the partnership works. I think that would be useful to have a one-pager that we can actually keep in our resources. And there is a mind map that is available, and we include in our resilience, the task force bulletins that go out or have been going out every week. They go via the district governors, so it's up to the district governors how they disseminate it. But our ideal is it goes out to every single Rotarian and every single club, so that you've got access to the information. The link to the mind map on there gives you lots of information. And also asking about sharing the newsletters that go to resilience officers. Can they also go to DGs? I think communication for me is the key thing. And I think that's one of the most important parts that we need to still work on. And we also need you guys to be telling us what you're doing. But we can cover that briefly at the end. I do want to just allow John to introduce himself and just say a couple of words, but then I'd like it to open it up to anybody that wants to ask questions, particularly of John, because I think, he's the one that is in touch with what is really, really happening on the front line, not just in the war front line, but actually in the whole of Ukraine, and as far as the medical crisis and what's happening around that. So John, if you could give us a few minutes overview, and then we'll open it up to everybody else.
Janine, you have over-exaggerated my role. I don't have that kind of big role. However, I've been in a way fortunate to find myself in a position to be connected with a group of doctors in Ukraine. And with the connection that I had, we have been able to get first-hand information from them about the tremendously, absolutely dreadful situation they are facing. And gradually it sort of evolved, and we have been able to connect with lots of people in Austria, Germany, Italy, and Poland and Moldova, other countries, really mobilize, to my surprise, massive international support for offering medical aid to people in Ukraine. So I have found myself in the center of this initiative. Sometimes I don't know whether I can keep up with it or not, but I am astonished at the amount of support we are getting internationally to focus our attention, my attention, just to offer medical aid to people there. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, John. And I want to acknowledge the huge amount of work you do. You may be very modest, John, but I know the huge amount that is on your shoulders at the moment. And I think all of us are going to be affected in one way or another in relation to what's going on. And we must all remember to look after ourselves and each other, most importantly. Don't ever forget that, please. So please, if you've got anything that you'd like to ask John or anybody else, just go ahead, put your, if you can use the reaction button, that would be great. David.
Yes, I mean, it's not, John and myself know each other very, very well. So you don't have to admire him for doing this. Well, you do, but he does lots of work, and he's done lots in the past as well for all sorts of different things, as you know. So that's embarrassed you there, John. And but what it is, it's nothing personal. That I mean, my district are sort of following what John's doing, and they're really pleased with it and very admiring it. And I've also spoken to others about what's going on. So from the medical point of view, as sort of food and medicines, you know, they say the two most important things, but we need a lot more. And what we will be looking for is help with the Ukrainians when they get here. So far in District 1060, which is the heart of England, we've got nothing. And I have spoken to the chair of the Ukrainian Society in Coventry, which is one of the biggest cities that we've got. Birmingham's the largest, but there isn't a Ukrainian community as far as we know. It's to sort of, if people can get information about people being here, because we have applied for and have got the emergency grant from RI, and we got that. So it's well worth getting, and it took us about 3 hours from filling the form in to get an approval. And so everything's it's from that point of view is going well, and we've got around about £19,000, I think it is, works out to be. You know, we want to send that to the local Ukrainian people to support them in whatever they need. And as you said there, we've got ways on. Cheryl's sort of nodding ahead. We don't want to throw it away. It's not an awful lot of money, but it is a lot if you haven't got anything yet. So that's all I want to say. And my apologies, I must go. So I'll be in touch with everybody soon. That's it. That's great.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Roger, is there something you want to say in response?
Yeah, I was just going to add
to
to what David said. Just for other people's information, the information this morning was that 12 of the 25 districts have got the disaster response grant of $25,000, and the other 13, most of them are already applying. And once we've spent it, we can apply for another one.
Oh,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
Keep pressure on your districts to make things happen, because all we're going to do as a DG, I just put the note out today saying it's up to clubs to tell me what they want to spend it on.
Absolutely, Roger. And I think the other message that came across today in our meeting this morning was, if you are not yet getting any of our guests into your district, and because the disaster response grant works so quickly, John, for instance, through the fellowship, has got lots of things that he wants to spend money on and is already looking to exceed the money that they've raised. You know, if we could get some disaster response grants specifically to help with the things that they need for the fellowship, for the medical side of things, you can get that done and dusted, the report done, because the report back is as simple as it is for the application. But please make sure that you know what you're spending the money on. You know, you are going to have to account for it. Get that done, and then you can apply for another one for your whatever you're doing in your own area. So that's one of the messages. Karen.
Can we, sorry, just very quickly on that point, can we apply for another one straight away?
Only when you've actually completed the first one and sent the return back. So you've spent your money.
Okay.
It's
Till the
it's-
money runs
it's
out,
sequential.
basically.
Can I
It's
come in
sequential,
and-
Carol, not Barrow.
Yes.
Brenda.
Can I come in and give some information about what's happening in with the Ukrainians coming in, our Ukrainian guests? Now, the reason that we don't know what's happening is that some of the local authorities don't know. The process is quite slow. Some are better at communicating than others, but the process is that the local authorities are told when they are coming, and at that point in time, they have the information and not before. So it's very difficult for them to plan ahead. They also know that they know the ones that are definitely arriving, and they know the ones whose visas are being applied for and have hosts in their area. So in the southeast, in our particular district, in 3 of the areas, we know that we've got 200 Ukrainian refugees. We know that we're actually working with the local authorities, the Ukrainians. We're working with the groups of other community organisations. However, in the other parts of the district, at this particular point in time, they have not yet shared. So it's a case of we've told the resilience officers that there's one point of information, and that is the local authorities. And then when you get to the local authorities, it's about squeezing out of them where in their local authority, which wards or which areas that the Ukrainians are in. However, we are finding that in the areas that they've actually arrived, then groups are being set up. WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, host groups. So for instance, in my area, I'm on a host group, so I can actually see what it is they are doing. And as soon as they arrive, all they're interested in is doctors, banks, schools, the basics. And one of the big problems which is coming up is the fact that the local authorities, some of them haven't received the money, and some of them, the process is that they shouldn't be giving out the money to either hosts or to the guests until they have had their second their second home visit, because they have to do a visit before they come and then a visit when they're there. And that sort of lag is causing problems because there's no money there. However, in one area, we've been able to help one of the Ukrainian groups actually set up as a charity so that they can actually receive funds themselves, because they, and also we're helping in some areas with them actually finding jobs and pointing them to job centres, etc. Several of the local authorities or Ukrainian groups, or however it's going to work in your area, it will vary, are setting up like weekly coffee mornings with information. In some areas, the councils are setting it up, and Rotary is being asked to come along to the coffee mornings. So it's a little bit of it's happening here, but not there. We know what's happening here, but not there. My local authority lead, who is the head of housing, sometimes it's housing, sometimes it's adult social care, she actually was emailing me at 4 minutes past midnight 2 nights ago, and we were having conversations. They are all working extremely hard, helping each other. So, you know, she's sort of saying, well, can you actually help us find out information? So just so that you've got that, obviously we do have people who are meeting and greeting if you happen to be in centres where they're, you know, close to where there are hubs. But again, it will vary.
Thanks.
So it's really just ears on the ground, and all the Rotarians need to be doing that.
Thanks very much. I was looking at some stuff on social media today from Michael Fernando, who's the DG down in the Somerset area. One of his Rotarians, they've got a family, and that Rotarian is very happy to share their experience, and I think very happy to talk and give any support. So the information for that, if you look on the Somerset Rotary District Facebook page. You'll see the information there. Karen, sorry, I thought you'd asked your question, but it wasn't. You have a question as well, so please, back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's for John. So John, when we've spoken, we've talked about sort of the fact that your group, when you're sending out items, and Michael Fernandez, when he sent out a shipload of stuff, you know where it's getting to, and you talked about and there are clearly loads of people and organisations wanting to help, and maybe initially things weren't happening efficiently. One of the points that you made last week, which I thought was helpful, was don't mix boxes in terms of what you're packing in them, and label them really clearly so that you know things can get to the other end, and think about the fact that when stuff arrives on the border or in Ukraine, there aren't loads of people around to sort things and that sort of stuff. And I wondered if that message is getting out enough, and what we can do to share that message. So if things are being sent out by your fellowship, we know that you're thinking about that, but we can't tell everyone that the money has to go through the fellowship, and there'll be other groups, and sort of a checklist and things we should be asking before we give boxes of clothes or medical supplies to people. Any ideas?
Let me comment on the medical side. I think medical side, if you look at it from the point of view of the recipient, if you have a container full of boxes arriving, and you open a box and find that there are toiletries and bandages and slings and plasters and everything mixed with things, who is going to sort it out? Where is it all going to go? So we are, this is not just anything about the United Kingdom. We are actually telling the world that if you're going to send anything medical, in the first instance, consult us. We can tell exactly what is needed and how to pack it, how to label it. And we can then tell the potential donor, if you're sending, say, for example, if you're sending, say, 100 syringes, packet it, label it, and we can almost say where it should go. So on the box, it should say this is for Harkey or which hospital it should go. That is the way we are working. Not always perfect, but we can make sure that when it gets that side, they can take the box. There's a label there. This is medical, and always big letters medical, and we can almost guarantee that it will get to the right destination. But if it's mixed with socks and warm clothing and bandages and shoes, etc., it will get dumped. I mean, that's a cruel thing to say, but I think the people who are unpacking are not medical people. They won't know what to do with it.
I think that's an important point John's just said, actually, and a sad fact that things do get dumped. You know, right from the very outset, from the task force, we were hearing from people like Shelterbox, who are experts in dealing with things like this, please, please, please do not send goods. Do not send anything unless you know it is meeting an actual need, you know how to get it from out of this country or these countries, GB&I, to wherever the point it's going to be then dispatched onwards. Please make sure you are confident that all of that mechanism is sorted, all of those logistics are sorted, because otherwise there are mountains of stuff that will sadly just be dumped, and it's given with the best of intentions. Roger.
Sorry, I'm just going to enlarge on that. We found out today how risky it is sending unsolicited goods. Slovakia has just announced they're imposing 22% VAT on goods going into their borders for onward transmission to Ukraine. And that's one of the major routes going through Slovakia to Uzhhorod. So if you can send money, not goods, other than medical goods that are sent in through the International Rotary Fellowship, that is really the key message that we must get over to people. It's lovely to do a pack a crate day or something like this, or send food, but it's just not going to get through.
No, and it's so sad, you know. It's all
it
done
costs
with
a
the best of
fortune to get over there.
intentions.
It costs a fortune to get over there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, you know, from the task force's perspective, you get links every week through the bulletin with the details of the bank accounts and the routes for the money that we are aware of as operating successfully. You get the details for donating financially through the fellowship. Those are our recommendations. You know, obviously things like Shelter Box and Aqua Box, Water Survival Box, those sorts of things, if you want to support them. But I also, a plea that John wrote in one of his pieces for the bulletin, let's try to help as Rotarians to help Rotarians. I know that a lot of people are donating to other organisations, again, with the best of intentions. But, you know, we have got people that we can trust as fellow Rotarians who are making it happen in those other jurisdictions. For me personally, they're the people I want to support and help the most, because they're the ones that I trust to get it where it needs to go and be used in the way that it needs to go. John?
Jenny, it's not just a problem with the United Kingdom. Sadly, 80 tons of medical supplies were flown in from a friendly country to Poland and arrived in Ukraine. And the message we had from the people who are handling it at the other end is that they don't even know what they are. They can't even actually, these are highly sophisticated machinery. You open a box and you take it out, you know, you got to have some knowledge about what make it is and what power supply you need to make it operate. They themselves are not able to use it. Today I had, you know, we have been trying to source some special type of X-ray machines, and I did report it to one of the things. The Ukrainians are used to using X-ray machines made by Siemens, and we have been trying to sort of get Siemens to partner with us, and with some modest success. Another friendly country wants to order it from General Electrics. They make similar machines, but the fittings, things are different. You know, it's like all of us, if you're used to using one machine, and if you suddenly are faced with another, they don't have the time or the skill at the moment to master a different machine. So we are telling the world, anyone who wants to supply medical items, consult us and we can probably point them in the right direction. As far as possible, we are sourcing them in Europe, but now, fortunately, we are able to establish connections with United Kingdom suppliers, and we have established business relationship with some major suppliers in the UK. And we are telling the Americans to give us the money so we can actually buy things here, make sure that it goes to targeted hospitals on their request. We don't dump anything anywhere. We need to get a request from an orthopedic surgeon to say that I need this thing to amputate a leg. And we will ask them, does he know how to make use of it? He will tell us, I'm used to this machine, and that's the only thing we will send and source. So targeted supply in that particular number. We don't dump anything on anyone. So that way we are being able to just be a little bit more impactful in our donations.
Thanks very much, John. In chat, Brenda is putting about, you know, any events that you're organising in your community is to consider our Ukrainian guests, but actually also any guests, you know, from any country. You know, it's an opportunity to reach out to other people. Rotary can really have a window here where we can connect with other organisations in the community. And even if you're a club that doesn't have the muscle power to physically be doing something, actually supporting some of these other groups as well in their setup. Like I think it was you, Brenda, that said about helping a group to form their own charity so that they could be applying for funding themselves. You know, there's lots of ways of getting them involved. And please don't think that this is a short-term thing. Just because you get them involved in this year's summer fair, think about next year too, because this isn't going to be a short-term situation for anyone. And also the mental impact, the emotional impact is going to be, you know, long-term for many of them. And that mental health impact, as Cheryl said earlier, it's also to an extent on our own children and grandchildren in this country as well. I mean, I've heard some awful stories from a relative of mine about some children that they were looking after, babysitting, waking up in absolute terror because they were babysitting and they thought that daddy had to go to war and wasn't going to come back. So think outside the box, think with that compassionate heart that we all have as Rotarians. I'm conscious there's quite a few of you that haven't had a chance to speak or ask questions. I'm happy to either go around the room or leave it to you to wave at me, but we've got another 15 minutes. So is anybody got anything else they'd like to ask? Gordon.
Yeah, thanks, Janine. I thought perhaps it might be useful to say a few words about what is happening down with some of the groups at sort of local level. I'm from Farringdon, the Farringdon Rotary Club, which is within Karen's district, between Oxford and Swindon. And some of the Rotarians are working quite closely with local village groups that have been set up to collect and deliver essential items. And these are going to well-established humanitarian aid hubs. In our case, in Swindon, there are 2 aid hubs that have been set up. They have got changing and updating lists of essential items that they require, and deliveries are being taken there probably on a sort of a weekly basis down there. They have shifted 40 tons of essential items out of Swindon to the neighboring countries and into Ukraine. They've already had sort of recognition for that from the President's office in Ukraine. So I just wanted to sort of make the point that whilst I hear you talk about Rotarians supporting Rotarians, the reality is, of course, that on the ground, Rotarians are helping to support local groups and doing it very well, in my view. Where local groups are also connecting into host families, and we already have some Ukrainian guests in our locality here. We've got networks that have been built up. We're trying to figure out the best way to support host families and to support the Ukrainian guests. So I just want to explain that there is a very good connection in certainly in this area, between Rotarians and what is going on the ground. And we have a plan, and we're building a website and so on. And I'm sure other groups are doing exactly the same. The one question I would have, though, is in a networking event that I went to last night to discuss all the difficulties of visas and matching and the website and so on, all that stuff that's causing so much frustration. I was wondering that within the Rotary organization, is there a focal point for Rotarians in the Ukraine or indeed in neighboring countries referring potential refugees to Rotarians in GBI? Is there someone who is doing this? So, for example, if I wanted to host a Rotarian family from Ukraine, who do I turn to in Rotary to see if I can get a Rotarian family?
Cheryl, Brenda, one of you want to answer that?
Do you want me to come in this? Do you want to start,
okay,
Brenda? I don't mind.
Can I just say, before you do, can I just say, Gordon, I'm not saying to the exclusion of doing things that with people that you trust in your community. However, please make sure that you are confident that what you think you're giving for this purpose to these people, they've got that mechanism in place for it to actually be delivered. And there are some really great success stories, but there are also some sad stories where it hasn't actually worked out. So it's just be absolutely sure. And for me, I can be confident in what I'm doing with Rotary is where I'm coming from.
Yeah. If I just pick up, Janine, on the other part of your question, Gordon, was about, you know, how do we centrally match Rotarians with refugees? We've been guided very much by our partnership with some of the other voluntary organisations, and it's been stressed very clearly that if I say about the offers first, anybody offering a home should go through the government scheme. It's not just about vetting and safeguarding, it's about triggering the support packages, the money, the health support, the social services support. You do need to get that home registered on the government website. Then in turn, for the matching, again, the importance of safeguarding was to work with an organisation that was actually experienced in this field. So we work with Reset, capital R, capital E, capital S, capital E, capital T. It's short for resettlement, and they specialise in actually homing refugees, doing the match between the offer and the refugee, and that's for all refugees. And we are working with them, Rotary Great Britain and Ireland. We've partnered with Reset. They are a not-for-profit organisation. They've got a tremendous track record. And you can, if you go and look at homesforukraine.org.uk, you'll see the way they do it. So I know it might seem a bit slower, but in the long run, it is a safer and a more robust and a more sustainable process. You can imagine if we had, you know, sort of Rotarians, or if we tried personally to match up Rotarian, we could not keep track of them. Our big worry would be, where are they now? So we've put into place structures and partnerships to try and prevent the dangers that are out there. Actually, there is trafficking dangers. There are, sadly, people that would offer a home that was unsuitable.
Thanks, Cheryl. Anything you want to briefly add, Brenda?
I was just going to put it in really just to stress that if we go through the non-official route, then there is not the funding. And they're finding it really, really difficult to find any way back into it. So it means the hosts won't get the funding, but more important even is that the guests won't get the funding.
Yeah, I wasn't. A
bit frustrating.
Yeah, I wasn't for 1 minute considering or thinking about going through any unofficial route. It's just that the host families here in my locality, they have actually had the names of potential hosts passed to them through different routes. In the case down here, it's through a military route, and they have then sort of passed those names into the official system, which has enabled them to be connected to that family. And some in our club, in our Farringdon club, said, I'd quite like to host a Rotarian family. Now, it seems to me that if we had the names of Rotarian families who need homes, then they could be fed in by Rotarians through the official system.
Yes.
It's part of the matching process. Cheryl,
Yes,
do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, I do. Long as you feed them in, Gordon, long as you feed them into Reset, you know, you can make it very clear these are Rotarian refugees, Rotarian host families. Feed it into Reset. You know, you can always signal extra information that actually helps them with their partnering.
The matching.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Thanks very much for that. Roger has put something in chat, I think, that is really worth highlighting. You know, one of the other things about giving through Rotary to Rotary is that it doesn't incur those costs, those top line things that get taken away by many other charities. You work out that the pound you give is worth 30 pence or whatever. So, you know, that's another good point. Karen, if it's okay with you, I'd like to go to Jim because he hasn't had an opportunity yet. Please, Jim.
Yes, thanks very much. I unfortunately do have to go. I'm actually going to another local meeting about Ukraine, sort of in central Bedfordshire. I just wanted to say that we were a bit concerned in our district because we have refugees from other countries who suddenly feel they're being left out. Yeah. And we have set up an additional fund taken from some of the reserves in our district account to support those refugees. These will be Afghanis, Syrians, and others. And we think it's very important that sort of we're not being seen to favour one group of people, especially if they're whiter than the other group of people.
Absolutely, Jim. I think that's a point very well made. And you know, also through the Rotary Foundation, don't forget about district grants and global grants to help with your work supporting those people as well. Roger?
Okay, if I can just say, we are one of the districts that have one of these grants. We're beginning to roll it out now. We've given about 3 lots of £1,000 out to different clubs. We're starting to do good things, but we're going to be quite careful that people don't spend large amounts of money on something that's not going to achieve great impact.
Indeed, and please make sure that we know about it.
Okay.
Roger,
okay, and my apologies. I do have to leave now.
Okay, thank you. Roger, briefly, and then to Karen, and then I think that'll be it.
Lob a hand grenade in. Is anyone else starting to see compassion fatigue?
No.
I'm glad you aren't.
No.
We're starting to see a tail off in the amount of money being collected. That's why I'm asking. So that's up to us to re-energize it. But
thank you.
Compared to the first 4 weeks,
I think your district has been extremely active, Roger.
Well, we're nearly £200,000 that we've collected.
Absolutely. Karen.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up and agree with Gordon's point on working with local community groups. So when I've been talking to the clubs, we've definitely been talking about, we're not trying to reinvent anything. We don't have to lead on anything. We should be partnering with those organisations we already work with. And so when I've been chatting to people about what they might be able to do to support refugees coming to their local area, straight away they're saying, oh yes, we work with this group and they've helped other refugee groups. And it's just really reassuring to hear that people aren't feeling they have to take the lead to make a difference, which I think is good.
Totally agree with that. John, is there anything you want to say before we start to bring things to a close?
I think the only thing I can say is that it's a very rapidly changing situation in Ukraine. I think you touched on the mental health issue. We are currently actually looking at the mental health impact on the internally displaced children and see whether we can put something in place to support them or not. I think we got to just be prepared to be flexible, and we got to be prepared to adapt. I just want to put a plug in for the Rotary Foundation that they are really suddenly, previously we thought it a target organization. The way they have responded to both COVID and this has been so amazing that we need to highlight that also. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from this experience. We are all learning. Today, Jenny and I reported to say that they are so short of vaccines, and they have been reported a case of rabies in Ukraine. So we are desperately trying to source internationally rabies vaccine and make sure that it can be administered correctly. So the situation is changing so fast. We can't just be prescriptive about anything that we are doing.
Thank you, John. Really do a heartfelt thanks to every one of you that whatever it is that you're doing, please keep the efforts up. Absolutely, this is just another part of what we do in Rotary, but it is a critical part. One other thing I just want to mention, John mentioned just then about vaccines. It was something that we talked about this morning in our task force meeting. There was actually a launch this afternoon of the investment strategy for the polio campaign. And very much the messaging there included Ukraine and the fact that it's not just about polio, it's about health systems, it's about immunizations and recognizing the situation in areas of conflict like Ukraine, which is actively being dealt with. So, everything that we do is connected as one human race. Where there is conflict of any sort, no matter how small or how big, it's going to have an impact on a lot of people. And this is certainly having an impact on millions and millions, not just in Ukraine, but elsewhere as well. You know, even our very own General Secretary, Chief Executive of Rotary, John Hugo, you know, he's from Ukraine, his family are Ukrainian, and the work that he's done there. So I hope you found this helpful. We do have these sessions fairly regularly. Please think about registering for our event on Saturday, the 18th of June. Can I just have a show of hands? Are you receiving a copy of our weekly task force bulletins? Could you physically put your hand in the air and keep it in the air? Okay, do it the other way around then. Can you put your hand in the air if you're not? Okay.
I'm glad none of them are in my district.
Gordon, you're in my district. You get it. It comes via our international chair. So our international chair sends everything out.
It is number 8, by the way. Barbara.
Number 8, yeah.
Number 9's coming out on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last thing, Karen, you were asking about VCSEP before. Was it generally about the partnership with VCSEP, or was it specifically re-Ukraine?
I think maybe specific to Ukraine, but just sort of, again, so that we can tell stories showing the benefit of this partnership and the benefit of working with others and not working on our own. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can put something together on that.
Okay, Ian, last question, and then I'm going to press end.
Thank you very much. This is the first time I've been on this discussion programme, and we were very fortunate as a club that Janine came to give us a on Zoom lecture, which focused my club very, very well, because we've got a very active local Ukrainians who were floundering on how they should get stuff out to Ukraine. What I'd like, if it's at all possible, I noticed you said about newsletters. I've received the last one. Is there anywhere that I can pick up all the copies? Because I'm, from what you've told us and encouraging on my club, we're quite keen to get the message out to other clubs in our district, 1240. Though we've got Peter Dowse, but
what I will make sure, Ian, is that everybody that registered for this evening's event,
yeah,
I will send you all of the bulletins. I will send you my PowerPoint, because there's some things on there that I haven't sent already, that you haven't seen, that I would like you to have seen. And I will also send you, well, within the bulletins, you will see a link to a mind map. That mind map is incredibly easy to use. All you have to do is copy and paste that link into any internet browser. When you do, a mind map opens. It's just a spider diagram. And wherever there's a number in a circle, you click on that number. In fact, it's an ellipse. You click on that number and an arm will open with more information. Wherever that number is, just keep going and you'll see more information. Wherever there's a minus sign in an ellipse, click on that to close the arm again. And you will see links to all of the bulletins. You'll see links to all the information that's come out from GB&I, from RI. You'll see lots of useful information there, including the how to apply for a disaster response grant, the reporting process, etc. It's one document with links to all the key documents, including all the bulletins, and I really suggest you try looking at that as well. But I will make sure I send all of that out. Hugh?
Janine, wouldn't it be a good idea to have a page or two on the Rotary GB&I website, which is what it's for, which actually dealt with Ukraine, and we could actually refer to these documents ourselves?
I would love that to be the case, Hugh.
Yeah, don't get us talking about.
Yeah, I'd love it to be the case. The mind map is the best option that we've got to make it happen. And then there's also, I know it's ridiculous. Cheryl is on the exec. She talks about these things. We've talked with exec about it. It's very difficult. I'm afraid that we are where we are. We're doing the best that we can in the situation that we find ourselves in. But please bear with us. And also, please like, follow, share things from the @Ukraine Task Force Facebook page, because that's got stuff on as well. And share your stories with us using the link in the online form, or send them by email to me. And we're trying to put together a spreadsheet of everything that we're hearing about. So thank you so much. I hope we see you at another of these sessions on other subjects, all linked to the fact that we are all peace builders. Thank you, John. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Bye.